Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how we love to take those deep dives into all sorts of interesting topics to improve your English.
That's right.
Well, this time, we're all about boosting your vocabulary.
Yeah, we found this awesome guide all about advanced speaking tips in English.
And we're zeroing in on adjectives today.
Powerful adjectives, ones you can really use to make an impression.
Exactly. So get ready to go from good to astounding and pretty to exquisite, because we're going to break down not just what these words mean, but when and how to use them like a pro.
It's going to be good.
Okay, let's jump right in. The first word that caught my eye in this guide is astounding. And they define it as causing amazement, bewildering. But how is that different from just saying something is surprising?
Well, think about it this way. Astounding has this sense of being completely blown away.
Oh, I see.
Like you're just speechless.
Right, like if you saw the Northern Lights for the first time, or, like a massive waterfall.
Exactly. Astounding has this root that goes back to the idea of being stunned or dazed.
Wow, that's a much stronger image than just surprised.
Absolutely. It really amps up the level of amazement.
Okay, I'm sold. Astounding it is. So what about exquisite? The guide says it means extremely beautiful and delicate.
This one is all about refinement.
Refinement?
Yeah. Think about something that's not just beautiful, but like carefully crafted.
Ah, okay.
With incredible attention to detail.
So like a handmade, intricate piece of jewelry.
Exactly. Or a perfectly prepared gourmet meal, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. Those are both definitely exquisite. Okay, next up we have pivotal. The guide says it means of crucial importance in relation to the development or success of something else.
I always think of a hinge when I hear pivotal.
A hinge.
Yeah, like on a door. It's small, but the whole door swings on it, right?
That's true.
Same with a pivotal moment.
Okay, so it's like that one decision or event that changes everything.
Exactly, like a historical turning point.
Got it. Okay, how about ingenious?
And that's a fun word.
I know, right? It makes me think of some kind of brilliant inventor.
Well, yeah, it implies cleverness, resourcefulness, originality.
So it's not just being smart, it's like coming up with creative solutions to problems.
Exactly. Like, remember when we talked about that guy who built a working airplane out of bamboo?
Oh, yeah. That was amazing.
Totally ingenious, right?
Okay, let's see. What do we have next? Ooh, profound.
This one's deep.
Yeah, deeper than just deep, I think.
Definitely. It's about having a deep and lasting effect on you.
So like reading a book that totally changes your perspective on life.
Exactly. Or having a conversation that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew.
I have had a few of those. All right, diligent. I feel like I don't hear this word enough these days.
It's a good one, though. It really emphasizes steady, earnest, and energetic effort.
So more than just working hard, it's about being dedicated and thorough.
Definitely.
Indeed.
Putting in the time and effort to get things done right.
I can appreciate that. Okay, last but not least, we have resourceful.
I think this one is super important, especially today.
I agree. What do you think makes someone truly resourceful?
Well, they're able to think on their feet and find clever ways to solve problems, even when things get tough.
And probably not afraid to try something new.
Absolutely. They can adapt to different situations and use whatever they have at their disposal to make things work.
Like that one friend we all have who can fix anything with duct tape and a paperclip.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Well, we covered a lot of ground today, didn't we? So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from this deep dive into powerful adjectives?
I think the biggest thing is to just be more aware of the words you're using.
I like that.
Because the right words can have such a powerful impact.
They really can.
Not just on how you express yourself.
But also how people perceive you.
Exactly.
So for all our listeners out there, I have a challenge for you.
Ooh, I love a challenge.
Pick just one of these awesome adjectives we talked about today and try using it in a conversation sometime this week.
Yes.
And just notice how it feels, how it changes things.
I bet you'll be surprised.
Absolutely. And hey, maybe you'll even inspire someone else to up their vocabulary game.
Spreading the word power.
That's what we're all about. All right, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep those conversations flowing.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Ever get the feeling that like everyday language is hiding secret stories? Well, buckle up, because in this deep dive, we're going to uncover the surprising origins of some of your favorite English idioms.
Okay.
You know, those sayings that color our conversations, like spill the beans.
What's fascinating is that these phrases aren't just quirks of language,
Right.
They're like little time capsules offering glimpses into history and culture,
Ooh, I like that. Time capsules.
and even human psychology.
All right, so let's crack open a few of these time capsules.
Yeah.
And what better place to start than with a phrase you might use at, say, a painfully awkward networking event?
Oh, I've been there.
What's the real story behind breaking the ice?
So imagine you're a ship captain, like centuries ago.
Okay.
It's the dead of winter, your route is frozen solid, and the only way forward is to literally, smash through the ice.
Oh, wow.
That act of carving a path through a frozen barrier, that's the original breaking the ice.
Wow, so every time I try to strike up a conversation with a stranger, I'm basically a fearless icebreaker captain battling the Arctic?
You got it.
I like that. That's a much cooler way to think about small talk. But how did we go from ships to social situations?
Well, it's a fascinating example of how physical actions can morph into metaphors for social dynamics
Okay.
that need to create a pathway,
Yeah.
overcome an obstacle. It applies whether you're sailing a ship or navigating a room full of strangers.
Okay, this next one always makes me cringe a bit,
Oh,
and I have a feeling I know why. Bite the bullet.
okay.
Tell me, is it as gruesome as it sounds?
You have no idea.
Well,
Before the days of anesthesia, battlefield surgeons had to get creative with pain management.
yeah, I bet.
And often that meant giving their patients something to bite down on during these agonizing procedures.
Oh, gosh.
A piece of leather, a stick, or, yes, even a bullet.
Ouch, talk about a tough situation. It makes you realize just how much we take modern medicine for granted. But how did something so brutal become a saying for facing difficult situations?
I think it speaks to that incredible human capacity for resilience,
Yeah.
for pushing through pain and adversity. Whether you are a soldier enduring a battlefield surgery or you're facing a tough conversation today, it's about summoning that inner strength, that grit to get through something unpleasant.
Makes you think about the expression grin and bear it in a whole new light. Right?
Totally.
Speaking of secrets, what about letting the cat out of the bag?
Okay.
Is this one as straightforward as it seems, or is there a sneaky feline backstory?
Oh, there's definitely a cat.
Okay,
And there's some trickery involved. Imagine yourself in a bustling medieval marketplace.
I'm there.
You're bartering for a piglet, a valuable livestock animal,
Right.
but some unscrupulous sellers would try to pull a fast one, swapping the pig for a less valuable cat hidden in a bag.
So letting the cat out of the bag exposed their deception. Poor kitty. But it does paint a rather vivid picture. And now it means accidentally revealing a secret, like spoiling a surprise party.
Precisely.
Right.
It highlights our fascination with secrets, the power they hold, and the consequences when they're unexpectedly revealed.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder what other secrets are lurking in plain sight, just waiting to be uncovered.
So true.
Okay, this next one hits close to home, especially after a recent trip to the electronics store. Cost an arm and a leg.
Oof, I feel that.
Please tell me this wasn't literal.
Okay.
Did people actually barter with body parts?
Not quite, thankfully. But it does tie back to the idea of value and status.
Okay,
So back in the day, having your portrait painted was a major status symbol.
it was.
Oh yeah, but some artists charged a premium if they had to include the subject's limbs. Apparently showcasing those fancy sleeves was a costly affair.
Wait, really? So vanity was literally priced by the body part back then. I guess some things never change. But why did limbs become the go-to for expressing outrageous expense?
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
It speaks to that human tendency to place a high value on certain things, even if that value seems irrational. And reminds us that what we consider expensive is often relative.
Yeah.
It's shaped by cultural norms and personal desires.
It certainly makes you rethink those impulse purchases, doesn't it?
For sure.
Okay, time for a weather report. What about raining cats and dogs?
All right.
Did people ever actually see animals falling from the sky?
Thankfully, no.
Okay.
Though the mental image is certainly memorable. This saying takes us back to 17th century England. So picture cobblestone streets, torrential downpours, and inadequate drainage systems.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, during these heavy rains, the streets would overflow, sometimes washing animals out of their shelters or off rooftops.
So it just looked like it was raining animals?
Exactly.
It's kind of gross, but I can see how that image would stick with people.
It's a testament to the power of language to capture these visceral experiences, these almost surreal moments in time.
Yeah.
And it shows how even something as chaotic as a downpour can be immortalized in a simple phrase.
All right, let's switch gears for a moment with one that sounds pretty straightforward. The ball is in your court.
Okay.
Did this one actually come from the tennis court?
It did.
Really?
And it's one of the more literal idioms we use. Just like in a tennis match, the responsibility to act shifts depending on where the ball lands.
So when we say the ball is in your court, we're essentially acknowledging a shift in responsibility, like I've done my part.
Exactly.
Now it's up to you to make a decision or take action. It's all about clear communication and knowing when it's your turn to step up.
Exactly. And just like in tennis, there's a certain strategy involved, knowing when to serve, when to return, and when to wait patiently for the next move.
Okay, I'm dying to know about spill the beans. This one has always made me picture someone literally spilling a bowl of beans to reveal a secret. Was that actually a thing?
But believe it or not, yes.
No way.
The ancient Greeks used beans for voting, white beans for yes, black beans for no. So if someone accidentally or intentionally knocked over the voting container.
Well, there goes the element of surprise. The beans were spilled and everyone knew the outcome. Talk about a voting security breach. But how did this very specific bean-related incident become a general term for revealing secrets?
Well, I think it speaks to that universal human struggle with keeping secrets and managing sensitive information. And it reminds us that even the most carefully guarded information can be unexpectedly revealed, sometimes with dramatic consequences.
You know, it's amazing how these seemingly simple phrases are like packed with so much history.
Right.
It's like each idiom is a little window into a different time and place.
It really is. And the more you explore these origins, the more you realize just how interconnected language and culture truly are.
Okay, I'm ready for more. What about steal someone's thunder? That one always makes me think of dramatic pronouncements and maybe a little bit of mischief.
Well, it is a bit theatrical. This idiom takes us back to the 18th century London theater scene.
Oh, wow.
A playwright named John Dennis invented a new sound effect for his plays. A thunder machine, if you will.
Okay.
Unfortunately, his play was a flop.
Oh, no. That's rough. Did someone literally steal his thunder machine?
Not quite, but something even worse. A rival playwright copied Dennis's thunder machine for his own production, which became a smashing success.
Oh, no.
Dennis was furious, accusing his competitor of stealing his thunder, both figuratively and literally.
So it started as a very specific complaint about a stolen sound effect,
Yeah.
but evolved into a broader idea of taking credit for someone else's idea or achievement.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even in the world of creativity and innovation, there are ethical considerations.
Right.
Giving credit where credit is due is important, whether it's a groundbreaking invention or a simple idea shared among colleagues.
Makes you think twice about borrowing ideas, doesn't it? Okay, this next one brings to mind a boxing match. Throw in the towel. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but I bet there's more to it.
You're right. This one is connected to a very specific physical action.
Okay.
Imagine a boxing match where one fighter is clearly outmatched their cornerman. Seeing the potential for serious injury, throws a towel into the ring to signal defeat and stop the fight.
So it's that moment of surrender, of admitting defeat, when it's clear that continuing the fight is futile or even dangerous. It's about knowing when to step back and reassess.
Precisely. And while it might seem like a sign of weakness, throwing in the towel can actually be an act of strength and wisdom. It takes courage to recognize when a battle is lost and to choose a different path.
That's a really interesting perspective. Sometimes knowing when to quit is just as important as knowing when to persevere. Speaking of knowing when to call it quits, what about hit the sack? Does this one really have to do with sacks?
It does. Though not the kind you might imagine before the days of comfy mattresses and feather pillows, beds were much simpler affairs.
Oh.
People often slept on mattresses stuffed with straw or hay.
So hitting the sack was quite literal. You were plopping down onto a bag of hay for the night. That makes so much sense. And it's kind of funny to think that a phrase that originated from such humble beginnings is still so widely used today.
It shows how language evolves alongside technology and culture. We may not sleep on hay anymore, but the need for rest for that moment of surrender at the end of the day is universal.
Right.
And hit the sack perfectly captures that feeling.
I'm loving how these idioms give us these little glimpses into the past. It's like time traveling through language. Okay, I have a feeling this next one is going to be a fun one. Under the weather. Did people used to literally hide from storms under the clouds?
Not quite. This one comes from the world of sailing. When sailors got seasick, they would often go below deck to escape the rough seas and the fresh air.
Wow.
So they were literally under the weather,
Yeah.
seeking refuge from the elements.
Wow, that's so clever. It never occurred to me that weather in this context referred to the actual weather conditions at sea. And now it's a common way to say you're feeling a bit ill or just not your best.
It's a great example of how a phrase born from a specific context can become a metaphor for a broader human experience.
Right.
We may not be battling storms at sea, but we all have times when we feel a bit off or under the weather in a more general sense.
All right. This last one for this part makes me think of those late night study sessions fueled by coffee and determination. Burn the midnight oil. Did people actually burn oil to stay up late?
They did. Before the advent of electricity, oil lamps were the primary source of light after sunset. So if you were working or studying late into the night, you were literally burning oil to illuminate your workspace.
That's fascinating. It's amazing how a phrase that originated from such a practical necessity has become a metaphor for dedication and hard work. It makes you appreciate how much technology has changed our lives.
It does.
Yeah.
But it also highlights that certain human experiences transcend time and technology, that drive to accomplish something, to push through challenges. Whether you're burning the midnight oil by lamplight or laptop screen, it's a testament to human ambition and resilience.
It's incredible how these idioms we use every day are like these secret messages from the past.
That's all right.
Who knew that like such simple phrases could unlock so much history and culture?
It's a testament to the power of language, you know?
Yeah.
These sayings may have originated centuries ago, but they still resonate with us today because they tap into these universal human experiences. The need to connect, to overcome challenges, to, make sense of the world around us.
It's like each idiom is a little puzzle piece. And once you understand where it came from, it fits perfectly into this larger picture of human history and the evolution of language.
That's a great way to put it. And what's so fascinating is that this puzzle is constantly expanding.
Right.
New idioms are being created all the time, reflecting the changing world we live in. Who knows what sayings will be puzzling future generations?
That's a really interesting thought. It makes you wonder what our everyday phrases will reveal about us to people centuries from now. But for now, I feel like we've only scratched the surface of the idioms we use.
Yeah.
There are so many more out there, each with its own unique story waiting to be uncovered.
There are indeed, and that's the beauty of it. You can keep exploring, keep digging deeper into the language you use every day. You might be surprised by what you find.
So to all you listeners out there, we challenge you to start paying closer attention to the idioms you use. Don't just take them at face value.
Yeah.
Do a little research, ask questions, and see what hidden treasures you can unearth.
And remember, language is a living thing. It's constantly evolving, adapting to new technologies and cultural shifts. So keep your ears open for new sayings, new ways of expressing ourselves.
Right.
Who knows, you might even coin the next spill the beans or bite the bullet.
That's a great point. Well, we've had a fantastic time exploring the origins of these quirky and fascinating idioms. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have, and that you've come away with a newfound appreciation for the power and depth of everyday language. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those tongues twisting.
Have you ever stopped and thought, what it'd be like if you could just walk up to a tree and have a conversation with it? Really, what kind of stories do you think they'd tell us?
Oh, wow. That's really something to think about, isn't it? Trees. Some of them have been around for hundreds of years. They've seen so much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so cool about this English lesson we're diving into. It's only 20 minutes long, but it really gets you thinking about talking trees. It uses all this vocabulary and tells stories, and even has you do a little role playing.
And what's really neat is how it uses that imagination thing to help you learn the language. Maybe if we start picturing trees talking, we might start understanding what they're already trying to tell us,
It's kind of like how some cultures already see trees, right? I was reading about the ancient Celts and their tree gods, or the Japanese and how they do forest bathing. It's all about connecting with nature on a deep level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we're tapping into something we all have inside us, that desire to understand the natural world around us.
So, okay, this lesson has a story in it called A Conversation with an Oak Tree. And the author uses some really awesome words to describe this tree, majestic oak, centuries old, roots stretching deep. You can practically see this tree.
It's true. Those words really make a difference. They're not just describing the tree. They're making you feel something about it, right?
Yeah.
You get a sense of how wise and how old this oak tree is.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's they want us to see this tree as something more than just a tree, maybe a wise old being or something.
Exactly. And that idea really comes through in the story itself. So the oak tree starts sharing memories, how it took care of a family of birds and provided shade to tired travelers and watched kids playing in its branches. It's this beautiful picture of how the tree is connected to everything around it.
It really gets you thinking about all the things a tree must see in its lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just always there watching everything go by.
It reminds us that trees aren't just background scenery. They're a really important part of the whole ecosystem.
And the oak tree in the story, it actually has a message for the person who's listening. It talks about how important it is to be gentle and caring and to live in harmony with nature.
It's a powerful message, especially these days when protecting the environment is so crucial. It's like if we try to see things from the tree's point of view, maybe we'll start to get how important that balance is.
Totally. So this lesson also goes into vocabulary, and there are some really cool words in there, like canopy, whisper, murmur, thrive. I mean, they all paint this amazing picture of the forest.
Those words are carefully chosen, like take canopy, for instance. It's not just about the top of the forest, it's also about the feeling of shelter it provides, how everything is connected up there.
It's like they're trying to make us feel like we're right there in the forest with the tree,
Exactly. And when you learn those words, you start to appreciate nature in a whole new way.
It's funny how learning new words can do that.
Yeah. Language has a lot of power, doesn't it? It shapes how we see the world.
So this lesson, it goes on to show these sample dialogues where people are actually talking to trees and asking them for advice.
That's a really clever way to get people practicing the language and thinking creatively. Like when you imagine talking to a tree, you have to think outside the box,
It's like we forget that nature can teach us so much if we just take the time to listen.
And speaking of listening, the lesson also has this role-playing activity where you get to imagine your own conversation with a tree.
Oh, that's a great idea. So it's like taking everything you've learned and putting it into action.
And it makes you think, what would I even ask a tree? What kind of wisdom am I looking for?
Right. Like what could a tree teach us about ourselves and how we live our lives?
Exactly. It makes you really think about things from a different perspective.
It's almost like, that saying, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around, does it make a sound? But like, what if they've been talking this whole time and we're just not hearing them?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. You ever think about how long some trees have been around? I mean, they've been standing there watching everything happen.
Oh, totally. I was just reading about this bristlecone pine. They call it Methuselah. And get this, it's almost 5,000 years old. That's like way before the pyramids were even built.
That's insane. Imagine if it could talk, right? Think of all the stories it would have. It'd be like a walking history book.
Well, speaking of history, this lesson actually talks about how trees can give us this unique perspective on time. Especially when you think about how humans have changed the environment,
Yeah, that's right. They've been through so much, like ice ages and forest fires and then all the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
But they always seem to bounce back.
It makes you think, even if trees can't talk to us with words, they're definitely sending us messages about the planet.
Totally. They're like these silent watchmen, always keeping an eye on things.
Oh, and it's cool. I was reading about this network of fungi that connects all the trees underground. It's almost like they have their own internet.
Oh yeah, mycorrhiza, right. Isn't that wild? The trees can actually use that network to share resources and warn each other about danger.
Wow, so it really is like an internet for trees.
Kinda, yeah. It just shows you how connected everything is in nature. We might think trees are all separate, but they're all linked together underground.
So like it's not just a bunch of individual trees, it's like a whole community, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the more we learn about those connections, the more we understand how amazing nature really is.
This lesson does a really good job of explaining all of that. And it makes you wonder, what if we could actually understand what the trees are saying?
Well, even though we can't have a conversation with them, we can still pay attention to how they're communicating.
Like, how their leaves change color or the rings inside their trunks.
Right. They're always sending us signals. We just have to learn how to read them.
And the lesson really stresses how important it is to protect forests. Not just for the trees, but for everything that lives there and for the whole planet.
It's true. I mean, think about it. They give us clean air and they help control the climate. And don't forget all the animals that live in forests.
Right. When you take care of trees, you're taking care of everything.
I think this lesson does a really great job of explaining all of that in a way that's interesting and fun. It's not like a lecture or anything.
It definitely makes you think. And it reminds me of how some cultures have always had this deep respect for trees and nature.
Yeah, a lot of cultures see trees as sacred or spiritual.
Like, how some Native American tribes would plant a tree when a baby was born? They saw it as a way of connecting that child to nature.
It's a beautiful tradition. It shows that our connection with nature goes beyond just the physical stuff. It's about something deeper.
Makes you wonder what they'd tell us if we could actually sit down and have a chat with them.
I think it would be amazing. Like, imagine all they could teach us about resilience, about adapting to change, about how we're all connected.
I've always been kind of fascinated by those giant trees like the redwoods and sequoias. They live for like hundreds, even thousands of years. They must have seen so much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They've seen civilizations come and go. They've survived all kinds of natural disasters. They've seen the world change in ways we can't even imagine.
It really makes you think about your own place in the world, doesn't it?
It does. We're just a small part of something much bigger.
So, like, going back to this English lesson we've been talking about, what do you think is the biggest thing listeners should take away from it?
I think the biggest thing is that it gets you to see trees differently. Not just as like these big plants, but as living beings with their own stories to tell.
It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
That's a good one. It's never too late to start appreciating trees and learning from them.
Even if we can't actually talk to trees, we can still learn how to take better care of them.
Exactly. And we can appreciate how important they are for the whole planet.
So to wrap things up, I think this deep dive has really shown us that there's so much more to trees than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's like opening up a whole new world.
And maybe if we listen closely enough, we'll start to hear what the trees have been trying to tell us all along.
Who knows? Maybe they've got all the answers.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.